Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3898 and today's date is May 5th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Confirmed Dems Were Faking the Job Numbers. Trump is resetting the central bank reset. Now, here's what your financial advisors won't tell you. By the time the news tells you to buy gold, it's too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting. Waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the Strait of Hormuz reopens, waiting to see what happens next. But gold isn't waiting for you. It moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown, and it moves faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. You can wait or you can prepare. You can't do both. Remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident, not after. If you're ready to act, reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans protect their savings with physical gold and silver shipped to your door or held in a tax-advantage IRA. No taxes, no penalties to roll over a 401k or existing IRA. Visit X22Gold.com for your free investor kit. 5 minutes today could protect decades of seconds. That is X22Gold.com. Don't be the one still waiting, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see they were planning for a very long time to reset the entire economic system. And they were going to bring us into their central bank digital currency, and they were going to have complete and utter control over pretty much everything. They wouldn't even need banks. Banks would be obsolete because, again, everything would be coming from the central bank system, from the central bank digital currency. And you could see that plan, the great reset that they had planned. Remember, they mentioned this going back to COVID, when they unleashed the pandemic on the people of the world. That's why it wasn't just the United States, because they were planning on resetting the entire world at this point. They even told us that's exactly what they were planning to do. And you can see that Trump thwarted their plan, and now he's resetting their reset. And they're panicking over this, because think about it. Think about what Starmer has been saying. Think about what Carney's been saying, letting everyone know that the United States is moving in a completely and utterly different direction than the rest of their system. Their system is moving down the path of the Green New Deal, the Great Reset, moving into a central bank digital currency, blending the countries, destroying their entire manufacturing base, destroying their identity, destroying pretty much everything. And they're letting the world know that they must fight against what Trump is doing. Because think about what Trump is doing right now. He's separating the United States from the rest of the globalist central bank system. And at the same time, he's dismantling their entire system. And they don't know what to do. All they could do at this point is follow the same path that they've been following. Let's bring in the foreign workers. Let's follow the Green New Scam. Let's keep doing what we're doing because it's going to work out. Well, it isn't. It's going to completely and utterly backfire on them, because when the United States' new parallel system comes online, the rest of the world is going to have a major, major problem. And the United States will be the manufacturing powerhouse. It will overshadow China. The United States will be energy independent, will be selling energy across the globe. And I wouldn't be surprised with the breakup of OPEC that fuel prices go below $2 and probably approach $1. Now, I think this will get even better when Trump starts to restructure the Federal Reserve and move us from the fiat currency to sound money. Then we're going to see a big change. But again, we have to go step by step with all of this. And the rest of the world that's following the ridiculous Green New Scam, the Great Reset, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And this is what Trump is doing right now. He's separating the entire globalist central bank system and what they want to follow from the United States. So this way, the United States can prosper. And without the United States, these countries are going to have major problems. Because think about it. When he removed the globalist trade structure, when he removes the globalist energy structure, when he removes all of these things, how do they operate? They can't. This is what Carney is complaining about. This is what Starmer is complaining about. Remember, they're puppets. They're taking the orders from the central bankers, from the deep state players, and they're just trying to push this. as hard as they possibly can. But in the end, it's going to fail just like everything else. And it's going to hit them pretty darn hard. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the people rise up in Canada, people rise up in France, people rise up in Germany, UK, you name it, Spain, Italy, you name it, because the people are going to suffer. The people are going to feel the pain every step of the way. And they're going to look at the United States going, why is their economy roaring? Why is their economy so great? What is the difference? And they're going to see it as clear as day. I mean, think about what Carney's doing right now. They have fast-tracked permanent residency for 33,000 foreign workers. What do you think is going to happen? 33 foreign workers. You keep bringing in the illegals into your country, paying them lower wages. Wages go down. And if the government decides to subsidize them, which they probably will, this is going to raise housing costs, rent, and everything else. If they put them on to government welfare, this is also going to hurt. So again, what you're going to see is what we saw in America. When the deep state, when the D's brought all these people in, it made wages go down. Inflation was going up. Rents were going up. Housing was going up. Insurance was going up. You name it. And this is what Canada is going to experience right now. Unbelievable. And when you look at the entire Green New scam that they were pushing, it's not green at all. Actually, it's worse than anyone could ever imagine. Peter Clack put this out and said, the world will have to deal with 43 million tons of decommissioned wind turbine blades by net zero in 2050. To put that into perspective, it's the equivalent weight of 215,000 locomotives. These blades are made of high-strength composite design to survive decades of brutal weather, and they are notoriously difficult to recycle. They were built to last, but they weren't built to disappear. Every turbine standing today will likely be decommissioned and replaced at least once before 2050 without a cost-effective way to recycle fiber-reinforced polymers. The majority of these massive blades are destined for eternity, buried forever in turbine graveyards. China, Europe, and U.S. will account for the vast majority of this waste, creating a mountainous industrial heartache that many net zero models simply haven't priced in. But 43 million tons of purely composite blade waste every 20 years is a colossal physical reality. And remember, it takes oil to create this. It takes oil to lubricate them. It takes a lot of energy to keep the free energy going, which it's not free at all. It's a big waste. And actually, it's actually hurting the planet, if you really think about it. The only reason they want wind, the only reason they want solar is to basically control the people, control the population size. Because if there's not enough energy, well, then we can't add more people. In the end, you're going to see that they'll control pretty much everything. And that's really what they want. They don't care if there's brownouts. They don't care if you don't have power. They don't care about that stuff because, again, they're not going to be using the wind, the solar, and everything else. And what is very interesting is that we could see that the deep state players, they were pushing their agenda to remove the food supply for the people. Again, remember, their entire plan, you got to go back a little bit in time to the World Economic Forum, they wanted everyone to eat bugs. They didn't want people to eat meat, real food, or anything like that. That was going to be reserved for them. And you could see it as clear as day with America's beef cattle herd because it's been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Secretary Brooke Rollins put this out and said, the facts are clear. America's beef cattle herd is at its lowest level since 1950. As of January 1st, we have just 27.6 million head of beef cows. Over the past decade alone, we've lost more than 17% of our cattle ranchers, with over 100,000 ranchers disappearing across the country. This is the reality we inherited, driven by the radical left's climate alarmism, years of drought, wildfires, market volatility, and overregulation. POTUS and this administration are committed to reversing that trend, strengthening the American beef industry, supporting our ranchers, and preserving this way of life for the next generation. Why would they do all this? Because this was all part of their plan. But now it's all being reversed. Everything the globalists, the central bankers tried to do is coming to an end. Trump now is removing everything that they put into place. And like we said before, United Arab Emirates, they're the first country to remove themselves from OPEC. OPEC, in the end, is going to break up. There will be no more control over the price of energy. It will be decentralized, and you're going to see everything readjust. Those countries that want to produce more oil, they'll produce more oil. Those countries that want to deliver to other countries where they're not assigned to deliver, they will deliver oil to those countries. It will be a decentralized open market system, which means the price of oil is going to go way, way down. Peter Seong says OPEC is breaking up. Fracking turned OPEC's money printer into a straitjacket, with America drinking their milkshake. A full breakup could drop gasoline prices below $2 a gallon. And I do believe this is exactly what we're going to see. Because think about what Trump has done right now. He has freed the oil from those countries that were holding it captive. And why were they holding it captive? Because this way the central bankers, the deep state players, could control the price of oil. If you notice, the price of oil control comes from where? The Middle East. They set up a centralized system to control everything. So what do? You make sure that the United States can't drill the way we should be drilling. You place sanctions on Russia. So this way they have a hard time distributing their oil. Same thing with Venezuela. You shut down the open market for them. And then Iran controls the fear in the Middle East. And the Middle East, via OPEC, controls the price. And this is what they've done. Trump now is removing all of this. So I think, yes, we're seeing oil prices go up. Yes, for some people, it's a very difficult time. Just like when Biden was in office. Actually, it was a lot worse with Biden. But I do believe that this is going to pass very, very quickly. And you can see already Trump now is gaining complete and utter control of the entire situation now. And I think he's always had control of the Strait. But again, you have to wait until certain things occur to move to the next level. Now he's allowing ships to go in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, here's what your financial advisors won't tell you. By the time the news tells you to buy gold, it's too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting. Waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the Strait of Hormuz reopens, waiting to see what happens next. But gold isn't waiting for you. It moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown, and it moves faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. You can wait or you can prepare. You can't do both. Remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident, not after. If you're ready to act, reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans protect their savings with physical gold and silver shipped to your door or held in a tax-advantage IRA. No taxes, no penalties to roll over a 401k or existing IRA. Visit X22Gold.com for your free investor kit. 5 minutes today could protect decades of seconds. That is X22Gold.com. Don't be the one still waiting, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Soon, you're going to see Iran completely and utterly fall, which means the central bank system controlling the price in this area is going to be coming to an end. And I think this is going to happen probably in a couple of weeks. I don't even think it's going to take that long. And I think by the summer, we're going to see oil prices start to snap back to where they were. People are going to start to see them come down. And then people are going to say, wow, this is really good. This is the relief that we needed. And we're going to see all this happen. Same thing with Trump going after the meat packers now. You're going to see the price of meat start to come down. And you're going to see that things are going to become much more affordable. And as we get closer to the midterms, prices are going to continually come down. Now, I do believe that prices are really going to drop probably in 2028. That's when we're going to see things really start to come down quite a bit. And when I say come down, I mean like under $2 a gallon. So I do believe this is where all this is headed. Because again, what is Trump doing right now? He's basically resetting the central bank reset. So we're going through a decoupling of the old system, and Trump now is creating the new system. Just another pod guy says, the reason decoupling was never going to be a smooth, drawn-out process was because China holds a large share of global capex hostage within its borders. Any attempt to decouple will be met with the exact policies they have just started implementing, which punish any firm that proactively attempts to move its production offshore. And because of the drastic bar that sets when you have to shoot the hostage and completely walk away from Chinese plant and equipment, the only way to make this tenable for the American voter is to push that pain to allies. The only way to push pain to allies is to drag them along with you in a decoupling. There is only ever one viable path that didn't end with China dominating global manufacturing and by proxy gaining hegemony. So Trump now is decoupling. And yes, you're going to feel it every step of the way. Because again, we're breaking free of the globalist central bank system and we're moving into a new system. And Trump let us know that we've been living in an illusionary world that the deep state, the Ds, made up to make us believe that everything was fine. When Biden was in office and they told you how many jobs were being created, well, we come to find out that he didn't create any jobs. And if you go beyond Biden, you learn that as the private sector jobs were lost, they just created government jobs, and these people did absolutely nothing. I mean, it was basically a waste because we, the people, have been paying for them, so they don't actually add to the economy. They take from the economy, just like the Somalis and everyone else. And Trump just confirmed that's exactly what they've been doing. So the idea going back in time that the economy was always great, it never was. It was one gigantic illusion. Now, how do you keep the illusion alive? You just keep creating more and more currency. And that's how you make people believe that everything is fine. But what's really happening is the value of the currency is declining, which means there's a huge amount of inflation. And no jobs are being created that produce anything. And all they could do is lie to you. And this is why people have felt the pain over many, many, many years since we came off the gold standard. And it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Trump says Democrat presidents were faking their job numbers because when the numbers were bad, they fix that by hiring hundreds of thousands of federal workers to do useless, unnecessary jobs. Democrats can do nothing unless they lie, cheat, and steal. And that's exactly what they've done for many, many years. And yes, as it gets worse and worse and worse, what do they have to do? They have to create even more jobs. Because remember, the plan was to do what? Was to shift everything out of this country. Why do they have to shift everything out of this country? Because when you remove the system from gold and you keep printing and printing and printing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, what happens? You can't keep the manufacturers, the companies in this country because everything would be too expensive. So you have to shift them overseas to keep the illusion alive. That's what they did. Trump now is reversing all of this, and he's removing those government jobs that did absolutely nothing, that produced absolutely nothing, that was just a drain on the system, and he's creating the private sector jobs. Now, it takes a little bit longer to create the private sector jobs because think about it. Let's see, if we wanted to create, and it's almost like the central bank creating currency. They wanted to create currency, they push a button and currency is just magically created. If you wanted to create a government job, you just say, okay, here's 10,000 jobs. That's it. We're done. And we just have to fund this way to borrow more. To create a private sector job that actually produces something, there's a little bit more work to that. You got to bring back the company. You got to build the company. You got to build the manufacturing plant. You got to hire the people. You got to train the people. But in the end, it's so much better. And that is why it's taking a lot longer, because Trump is building something that's going to last, something that's going to benefit the people, something that is going to that is going to increase wages. He's building something, just like when you build a building. It doesn't go up in a day. It takes a while to build this incredible structure. And if you're going to do it right, the structure turns out absolutely beautiful and incredible. And you can see with Trump's tariff system, it is working like no one could ever imagine. Rapid Response 47 put this out and said, GM's U.S. manufacturing investments surpass $6 billion in 1 year. Tariff Man responds to this and says, the same companies that for decades were moving overseas are now pouring capital back home. I'm like a broken record saying this at this point. Tariffs work. So factory construction is soaring under Trump. So what do we have? Well, if you look at the first quarter of 2025, we have 9,300 jobs in construction because they're building what? They're building the manufacturing plants. The second quarter of 2025 went up to 19,500. The third quarter of 2025, it went up to 26,100. The fourth quarter of 2025 went up to 31,800. The first quarter of 2026, it went up to 54,200. So if we created a lot of construction jobs and they're building the data center, the manufacturing plants, and once these buildings and the manufacturing plants and everything else is built, we're going to have people then get jobs within these companies. So we're seeing a lot of jobs being created right now, and it's going to continue. Tariffs are working. And think about what else Trump has done right now. When Biden was in office, Obama, and going back in time, countries were dropping the dollar. And let's just call it the Federal Reserve note, because really that's what it is. And they were shifting away from the Federal Reserve note. And this was done on purpose because they were preparing to shift the world to China. So basically, they needed every single country either go back to their own currency or sign up with China. Trump, since he came into office, he is now pushing the Federal Reserve note back to every single country. Why? Because this is in preparation not to have the central bank and use the central bank. It's in preparation to remove the central bank and back the currency with gold and the stablecoin. Kobisi later on X put this out and said the world is using more U.S. dollars than ever. Offshore U.S. dollar deposits held in banks outside the U.S. are up to a record approximately $14.5 trillion. This is 220% more than the approximately $4.5 trillion held at the beginning of the century. By comparison, only $3.5 trillion worth of euros are held in offshore banks outside the Eurozone. And the Fed and domestic commercial banks hold over $19 trillion. This means offshore U.S. dollar deposits are now equivalent to 43% of the U.S. domestic bank deposits. With no other currency coming close to this percentage, global demand for U.S. dollars is incredibly high. And I do believe Trump, he did this because he needed to reverse what they were trying to do. And with all the investments coming back to this country, we can see that his system is getting more and more powerful every single day. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He says, I made the USA $45 billion in 8 months. Well, Joe Lange explains what he means by this. He says so many people are missing just how much America is already being transformed. It's been happening since Trump was first sworn in. What happened in the past? Favored corporations got special treatment from the government. They got special treatment in order to funnel profits back into the pockets of the very politicians who protected and promoted them. What's happening in the present under Trump? Trump just posted this on Truth that he made this country $45 billion in 8 months. How did Trump make America $45 billion? Intel stock has surged over 385% since the U.S. took a 9.9% stake, with Trump saying the government's gain now exceeds $30 billion. This investment is an unrealized gain that belongs to the American people. The politicians can't get their hands on this money. And Trump didn't use current tax receipts for this purchase. The Intel investment was reportedly funded by converting $5.7 billion in unpaid CHIPS Act grants and $3.2 billion from Secure Enclave program into equity. The deal gave the government a passive non-voting stake without a board seat. With a 9.9% holding, the U.S. government became Intel's largest single shareholder, according to the figures provided. The agreement also included a 5-year warrant allowing the government to buy an additional 5% of Intel shares at $20 each if Intel loses majority control of its foundry business. The American people are now the largest single shareholder of Intel. It was funded with unpaid grants from the Biden's CHIPS Act. Are you seeing the transformation? In the past, these big corporations were getting taxpayer money while moving their manufacturing overseas. Now, they're building their manufacturing in America so that Americans will benefit from Intel's success. It's now a partnership between companies like Intel and the American people instead of a partnership between corporations and politicians at the expense of the American people. Art of the deal. Trump is placing the American people in a position to profit from these investments. That's why Trump keeps telling the American people that dividend checks are coming in the future. The government paying the people instead of taxing them and taking their hard-earned money. Trump keeps telling us in different ways that he's going to completely end income taxes. Now think about this. Look at your paycheck. Look at how much money the federal government takes from your check through income taxes and Social Security taxes. Imagine the American people suddenly getting to keep all their hard-earned money. An instant big pay raise. Do you fully understand how much our economy is going to grow? How about double-digit GDP growth? It's coming. And when Trump fixes the currency by backing the dollar with gold again, a golden age that none of us ever expected 10 years ago, will completely change the lives of the American people. Trump is doing the opposite of the past presidents. Anybody remember the term free market or free trade? Past presidents pushed free trade. Trump did the opposite by implementing tariffs. It's not only about returning manufacturing to America. The global cabal of elites and their puppets like George H.W. Bush were pushing free trade for a reason. I fell for that lie. NAFTA was one of the biggest scams on the American people. The American people were promised an increase in jobs and opportunity. The exact opposite happened. Our manufacturing was gutted, and many of our great cities were purposely put into decline. It was mostly about drugs. So Trump is now rebuilding the country through tariffs, while at the same time giving the American people a financial benefit from our manufacturing success. That's a massive safeguard for our future. Once the American people start receiving dividend checks from these investments, they aren't going to vote for people to take them away. Absolutely. And if you want to see any of his work, you can go to his Substack and you can read a lot more of Joe's work. He does a really great job. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Trump, he's getting prepared to take over the Federal Reserve. Now, do I mean he's coming in, he's going to be sitting in the Fed chair seat and he's going to be calling the shots? No, he's putting his man into place. And the individual he's putting into place, Warsh, he's going to do everything that needs to be done to restructure the Fed and get it prepared to be brought into the Treasury. And I do believe Trump is letting us know that the old Fed is being thrown out and the new system is being created, because he put this out on Truth. And it says, too late is a disaster for America. Interest rates too high. Absolutely. And you could tell the deep state players, the central bankers, they were keeping the rates high on purpose because they know if they lowered the rates and they brought them way, way down, the economy would take off and boom like there's no tomorrow. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep control of their system as best they possibly can. But when Trump frees the flow of oil and the prices come way, way down, their entire narrative, their entire talking points that they continually push go out the window. Because when Trump brings the inflation rate way, way down, probably to zero, remember, this is not the cumulative number, this is the current number, people are going to go, wow, 0% inflation, because that's what people are going to hear. And when energy comes way, way down, who's going to be in position to lower the rates rapidly? Trump's man. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see businesses start to pick up. You're going to start to see the automobile industry start to pick up. You're going to start to see people have more money in their pocket because now the rates for credit cards are going to come way, way down. You're going to see the government's going to have a lot more money because the rate on the interest are going to come way, way down. And you're going to see that the economy is going to really start to take off. Now, think about all of Trump's and the investments that he's doing right now, where he's going to bring in billions upon billions, probably end up be trillions of dollars. That money is going to be distributed to the American people. Because again, that system that he's building is going to take over for the system that we have today. Instead of the money coming from the country internally to fund everything, it's going to be coming externally. And the people are going to be set free once and for all. And when people are set free and they're no longer a slave to the system and they get to keep their hard-earned money, what do you think people are going to do with it? They're going to put it back into the economy. They're going to save it. And you're going to see the entire system change. When Trump says we're entering the golden age, we're entering the golden age. And it's going to be absolutely incredible. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.